Epic Games is mandating inclusive language for their Unreal Engine coding standards. And it is my opinion that this is actually a violation of the First Amendment. I think it discriminates against people of certain faith that disapprove of the lies of transgender ideology. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com. And if we go over and look at this coding standard document, it makes it clear everything in the document is mandatory. The document begins saying, at Epic Games, we have a few simple coding standards and conventions. This document reflects the state of Epic Games' current coding standards. Following the coding standards is mandatory. So they are mandating this. And what they are mandating, I think, goes against a number of religious faiths, including mine, Roman Catholic, which we will discuss here in a little bit. The document then includes a section titled Inclusive Word Choice. This section states, when you work in the Unreal Engine code base, we encourage you to strive to use respectful, inclusive, and professional language. Nothing wrong with that there, except for the word inclusive. And we'll find out why that is so wrong. Word choice applies when you name classes, functions, data structures, types, variables, files and folders, plugins. It applies when you write snippets of user-facing text for the UI, error messages, and notifications. It also applies when writing about code, such as in comments and changeless descriptions. The following sections provide guidance and suggestions to help you choose words and names that are respectful and appropriate for all situations and audiences, and be a more effective communicator. AKA, we're teaching you how to lie and dupe people. We then get a number of subsections, the first being racial, ethnic, and religious inclusiveness. It says this: do not use metaphors or similes that reinforce stereotypes. Examples include contrast black and white, or blacklist and whitelist. Can't use blacklist and whitelist anymore. Banning those terms. In fact, it goes on to say, do not use words that refer to historical trauma or lived experience of discrimination. Examples include slave, master, and nuke. Who determines words that refer to lived experience of discrimination? That's going to be a big problem. Going to end up where you can't write anything because potentially all words could be lived experience of discrimination. Because people are going to keep finding words to use to discriminate. Just how it is. If you ban something, you make it taboo. People usually find ways to get around that taboo. They find other words to use. The next section, not saying that's right, obviously. And in my opinion, as we'll get to here, this document is discriminatory. The next section, gender inclusiveness, says this: refer to hypothetical people as they, them, and their, even in the singular. That is a lie. They are actively telling coders to lie. That is immoral. You should not be lying. Lying is wrong. If you're referring to one person, it is a he or a she. In proper English, If you do not know what the sex of the individual is, you use the masculine he. Nevertheless, it goes on. Refer to anything that is not a person as it and its. I that sounds good. That's accurate. For example, a module, plugin, function, client, server, or any other software or hardware component. Do not assign a gender to anything that doesn't have one. I guess I see where they're going at here. I think you can probably refer to things as male and female. It's like Gone in 60 Seconds, right? His car refers to all the cars have girl names. The cars are referred to as girls. And I think even in like I'm not an electrician or anything like that, but I feel like even in when you're doing stuff like that, you have like the female and the male and everything like that. The male goes into the female, et cetera, et cetera. So they're trying to uh, disabuse coders of using that language. Do not use collective nouns like guys that assume gender. Avoid colloquial phrases that contain arbitrary genders, like a poor man's ex. These people are literally trying to brainwash you by mandating what words you can use. Ridiculous. You cannot use the phrase a poor man's ex. It's just utterly ridiculous. Absolutely evil. We have two other subsections, slang and overloaded words. Slang says, remember that your words are being read by a global audience that may not share the same idioms and attitudes and who might not understand the same cultural references. Avoid slang and colloquialisms, even if you think they are funny or harmless. These may be hard to understand for people whose first language is not English and might not translate well. Do not use profanity. Definitely agree on that third one. Shouldn't be using profanity. Don't know why you would be using profanity while coding anyways. Unless you're doing dialogue or something like that and character uses it. Gotta code that in. Many terms and then overloaded words. This section says many terms that we use for their technical meanings also have other meanings outside of technology. Examples include abort, execute, or native. When you use words like these, always be precise and examine the context in which they appear. So let's get into why I think that this document is discriminatory. And it mainly is because they're mandating it, and they're mandating coders refer to hypothetical people as they, them, and their, even in the singular. This is, in my opinion, promotion of transgender ideology. And we have this document from my bishop, Bishop Michael Burbidge of the Diocese of Arlington. It's titled A Catechesis on the Human Person and Gender Ideology. If you've been watching the channel, you know I've cited this in past videos. Parts of that document, specifically this section of the document as well. And it reads, obviously he's referring to people, real people, and not specifically to this Unreal Engine coding document, coding standards document. But I think we can extrapolate the truth here from his guidance. He says those asserting a transgender identity and or seeking to transition often adopt new names and pronouns that reflect their desired identity and insist that others must use the chosen names and pronouns. Such use might seem innocuous and even appear to be an innocent way of signaling love and acceptance of a person. In reality, however, it presents a profound crisis. We can never say something contrary to what we know to be true. To use names and pronouns that contradict the person's God-given identity is to speak falsely. I think this applies here as well. When you're trying to refer to a single person using they, them, and their, you are speaking falsely. Bishop Burbage adds this: the faithful should avoid using gender affirming terms or pronouns that convey approval of or reinforce the person's rejection of the truth. It is not harsh or judgmental to decline to use such language. In the broader culture, Catholics may experience significant pressure to adopt culturally approved terminology. It's exactly what Epic Games and Unreal Engine are trying to do. They are trying to force you to adopt their culturally approved terminology. And what does Bishop Burbage say? In no circumstances should anyone be compelled to use language contrary to the truth. The right to speak the truth inheres in the human person and cannot be taken away by any human institution, such as Epic Games. Attempts by the state, corporations like Epic Games, or employers to compel such language, particularly by threats of legal action or job loss, are unjust. We must love in the truth, and truth must be accurately conveyed by our words. At the same time, clarity must always be at the service of charity as part of a broader desire to move people towards the fullness of the truth. So, this is a Catholic bishop, my bishop, explaining that we must reject what Epic Games is trying to do here by applying pressure, by mandating coders adopt this culturally approved terminology. And because they are trying to mandate this, I think there could be, and I'm not a legal expert, but I think on the surface, this looks like Epic Games, Unreal Engine, and their coding standards are clearly discriminating against people of faith that reject transgender ideology and the lies that it pushes. And that's exactly what Epic Games is trying to do. They're trying to adopt this transgender ideology. They are putting it into their coding standards. They have a section here, it's on their website. This looks like it is discriminatory. We'll see what happens. I know there's a bunch of court cases that seem to be ruling against a lot of this nonsense because it is illegal. But I think it's going to take a long time to get through the court system and get all this stuff weeded out. And while that's happening, there is going to be a lot of damage done to these institutions. The one good thing, though, is that coders who do not want to adopt this stuff can be making their own things, making their own engines. Obviously, I know Unreal is one of the biggest, but they cannot be engaging in this stuff, creating their own things, and hopefully creating things that are even more successful. But we'll see what happens. We'll see if we see someone like the America First Legal decides to take action against Epic Games. We know that they are taking action against the Walt Disney Company for their uh, hiring practices. They filed an EEOC complaint against them. We'll see if something like this also has a legal complaint filed against it in the future. We will be on the lookout for that. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. As always, remember to be charitable, especially to each other, but to always speak the truth, something that Epic Games is not doing right here in their Unreal Engine coding standards.